good time, but then you start to look at the economics of it all.
Right.
One of the things that you look at, okay, I've got a facility. The idea was having 2 productions going on, so that there's always a little, they're carrying the sort of the cost of, they can carry the weight of the overhead and like everything that you have.
Yeah.
But then you're like, okay, so we have 2 service productions going on, and we wanted to go, well, eventually we'd like to have our own IP and to do that as well. But you also want to honor the people that put a spotlight on you and helped you get to where you're at. So you want to be loyal to the fact that, so the work that, with Nickelodeon's a great example, they put us on the map, and so we're situated, we're going to be loyal to that and continue working with them, always moving forward.
Yeah.
The idea is that, okay, we need to expand again a little bit so that we can do our own content without affecting that relationship that helped us get where we're at.
Yeah.
And you see that it's not an easy decision to come to. And you catch yourself because it's like that 4 or 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, you said, oh, this is as big as I want to get.
Yeah.
And then everybody remembers you had that conversation,
Yeah.
and you're like,
and now you're twice as big.
and you're looking at them going, I understand, but now with the experience that I've gained from then till now, in order for us to do some of the things that we've always wanted to do, which is to do some of our own content as well.
Yeah.
We
alongside
need it.
That's
Well,
right.
So I think you come back to, again, you assess value.
Yeah.
Same thing. So under those circumstances, at that point, that point 3 years ago, we said, my comfort zone is this.
Yes.
Now, in those 3 years, you've grown as a person, as a businessman, as all those kinds of things. You have new set of needs, and you're looking at the realities. You also now know what you can handle. And you maybe have 5 more people that you didn't know existed 3 years ago.
Exactly.
Because you all of a sudden you had 2 people in your life that you could trust,
Yes.
Now you have 5.
and now you have maybe 5 or 10 that you can
Right.
trust.
Yeah.
Slightly differently.
Yeah.
But so all of a sudden your capacity to expand to 100 people that wasn't there before might be there. But it's recognizing. Because some people, again, this comes down to personal judgment and knowing yourself and all those things, because you could get to that point and you'd be like, sure I can go to 100 people and not be ready for it. Like how do you, the bigger question I think is how do you know that you can handle it? How do you know that you can that you are ready for it?
Right.
Because anybody can convince themselves by
I
saying
don't think
yes to
you'll ever
everything.
know, right?
No, but it's that whole thing about like saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
It's part of that. To the point where you're chasing, you've said yes to so much that you're chasing to staff it and to expand, because rapid expansion is the fucking killer.
Trust is identifying people. Like when you look at what I've got, what's happening here in Toronto is a good example. I came into a situation where I didn't know the team that I was coming into. So you're like, oh my goodness, this is going to be challenging. But each of the productions have a solid creative, from Diana, David, yourself, and Rick. So we knew immediately across 3 shows I had strong creative. And on the producing side, I knew we also had strong with Tracy and Annette and Jasmine. And then we had Dan and Robbie. And then we had people in other positions where, like, I came into a situation where the people that run the facilities and infrastructure have been there. I've been in the industry for so long, post-production. So when you look at all these guys that are in these roles, you can see the experience that they have, but you can also see a sensitivity, a know-how. They've got a heart for the crew. This is the key thing, and this is what, for almost every person that you have in a senior role, you want them to care.
Yeah.
You want them to be passionate, and if you can see that and recognize it in different roles outside of the creative, you can see it in the people that handle the technology, that handle the facilities, that handle the financial sort of situations that you come across as you go through and you grow.
You don't want them to be phoning it in.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing.
And that gives me more peace of mind. So when we came into this situation in Toronto, we did well because we had a good group here. I think that this is the whole thing. Like, you never know what you're going to get until you go through it.
Yeah.
And then I want to say this too. The clients play as big a role in all of this.
Yeah.
Because
That is a good point. Yeah.
because we found that we look at Spin Master, Mattel, and NBC Universal. The 3 groups have been unbelievably. I mean, they're just wonderful with the Nickelodeon and on the Ottawa side. I'd say when you go through this, and one of our clients who turned out to be one of our partners now with Radical Sheep, when you see all these things that play out, the thing is that with each group, you know what it is to work with someone that you don't enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That their production approach might be a little bit contrary to what you'd like to experience for a full production cycle.
Yeah.
And then you see what it's like on the other side, where you're like, man, this is great.
Yeah.
So, to be honest with you, those relationships have made this all work. if it was a bad relationship, we wouldn't be where we're at right now.
Yeah.
I find
Perfect storm.
that's a lot of my job role, especially when we have clients, is I am like while the job is to keep things structured and not have it like just go. You're kind of the friend. Like you want whether it's a real friendship, and I
Sure.
do have clients who, like, we're either still working with them or we're not working any further, but they are friends of mine. Like if I'm
That's
going
right.
to New York, we're hanging
Yeah.
out. Like
That's
we
right.
have a personal relationship now, but you kind of want to make it, and in some cases that has, I'm not saying that like I'm the one that got us the job, but it's led towards us getting the job. It led towards us having Skyship, was just we
Sure.
were
Yeah.
easy to work with. We were compatible, and we could
that-
get along with each other, and it just made sense.
You're right. That goes along, a long way. It's just I always like, even though we work, we do a lot of work remotely, but I always make a point if I'm in town or they're in town, to meet,
Yeah.
and it makes that connection. That just, even if it's once, and then
Yeah.
everything else, even in town, I'd like to go to the places and meet in person, and that's it. Even if I don't, all of it is electronic phone, that one little thing.
Even
is
if they're
like-
not a current client, you're just going
Well,
to hang out.
yeah.
You're
That's
just
why I like
going
going
to be
to-
there.
that's why I like going to
at
Ottawa.
some point, these things become genuine relationships.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's when you're in a whole other world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're in the trenches with them in the production as you
And
go through.
yeah, and you sort of, it's this way too of like, you do it with the crew as well. Like it's a fine line, because when I first started in the industry, I would say the mistake of I wanted to be friends with the crew. I wanted them to feel like they could come into my office and talk to me anytime. I wanted to have that friendship, and all it takes is one rotten apple. And there was just this one crew member who took advantage of the situation, and it stung me. And I felt, okay, so I can't actually be as close with these guys as I want to be. I do have to have it. There has to be a buffer between me and them. And so it's always been a tightrope. My door is always open. Usually it's closed. But like metaphorically, my door is always open. And I want to feel like I'm approachable, but there is a point where I have to disconnect, and
Well,
you
but
can't be
also
there. It's the
people
same with a
people
client.
genuinely like structure.
Yeah.
People genuinely like to know that like you're in that office for a reason and you got our back.
Yeah.
And so there's some deference in that. Like my lessons in this come from weird places. Like it was when I was teaching.
Yeah.
When I was teaching, and my whole arc of management was weird that way. And then I kind of came into management just. I was the guy who drew pictures, and then I moved into development, and that put me in a position where I ended up managing a studio. And I was like 25, and I was managing the studio, going from like 30 people to 65 people to 75 people to 125 people. And it was this really touchy-feely kind of like, because we're all a family, and all, because that was what I was being given as the culture, and that's all I knew.
Sure.
And it took me going and working, and we were talking about this actually earlier today, going and working a phone sales job in one of
Sure.
those downtimes
Yeah.
for over a year to harden up
Yeah.
and recognize that some competitiveness is excellent.
Sure.
Some not aggressiveness, that's the wrong term for it, but some hierarchy. People need some hierarchy.
Well, yeah, that's because
I
it
think
doesn't
they
have to
wanna
be.
know where the buck
But it's
stops.
not a power struggle. It's more like you're the director. You're in charge of the
And that
vision.
you're gonna take
I don't want to worry about the.
responsibility for it.
I don't want
As a
to worry about the
director.
vision. Yes. Let's get to that. Like,
So we have so for the purposes of the camera,
Yeah.
we have a unique situation here in that Sam has for a very long time been kind of a one-man shop that does this and this and this and this. Has had the advantage of the kindness of others to kind of, you've always sort of been housed within other studios, because that's actually how it was birthed. Style 5
Yes.
came out of that circumstance. You were working with
Came
Chuck,
out of Chuck, yeah.
and so it was under Chuck's
Can we not-
umbrella.
Can I not say it that way?
Came out of Chuck.
Came out of Chuck.
Birthed out of Chuck,
Under Chuck's
Happened in Chuck's
mentorship.
studio? I don't know.
under Chuck's umbrella.
There
Under
we
Chuck's
go.
umbrella. There, all right. Excellent,
That sounds
excellent.
less porny.
And when I came down here, you were in a similar situation over at Yowza.
Yeah.
You had a little corner of the
Just
Yowza
been
studio.
birthed out of everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we took you in over at Smiley Guy when the Canuck stuff was happening.
So what do you call those people that...
Are you
Squatter.
panhandling
Are
on
you
the
a
corner?
squatter?
What's
Are you a
happening?
squatter?
yeah, because we're squatting too, like at our place.
I'm the professional animation squatter.
I have always felt, quite honestly, I've always felt that all I really need to do is own a piece of real estate.
Yeah.
And I could, and all of a sudden you guys would all fucking show up. and then we'd have this amazing studio. We could probably get the Neptune guys in.
Yeah,
here
I
too.
haven't hired any of them. They just all keep showing up every day.
I just put some desks out and
It was crazy.
I
One day
left
we just
keys.
brought cheese and they showed up.
So you've been squatting for years. So when
Many years.
but you've also
Almost
but-
10 years.
and you've had this really strong brand that is and Style 5 is you.
It is me.
It's you. So but you've had the,
Were there ever other artists that you were collaborating with, or has it always been you?
It was always led by me, and when I first started Style 5, I tried to make it a collaborative.
Such a romantic idea.
It
eh?
was,
This is gonna be a
yeah.
bunch of creatives,
It's
and,
just
and it's gonna be
nothing.
awesome.
Collective.
Hey, never works.
We had
Someone's gonna
Yeah.
have bongos, and it's gonna be great.
And
And
how did it go?
it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It didn't go
Yeah.
anywhere. I thought we had strength in numbers. We had some really good artists.
I remember that roster. It was
yeah.
tight.
None of us had any foresight in where the money would come from,
Right.
right?
Right.
None of us had business sense.
Also,
And-
the conversation of when one of you lands a job
Yeah.
and what portion of said payment goes back into the company
Exactly.
becomes a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I thought we would have the tutelage of Chuck, but to be honest, Chuck was just too busy at the time, and Chuck backed out of, even though it was birthed, conceived with Chuck.
From his,
Yeah.
I won't go there, but I have a whole thing we'll talk later.
This is, yeah.
Uh,
And I can always cut it out. It's fine if you want to go for it.
well, he backed out
His
before it
vaginal
became
creativity.
anything. Yes. His orifice of creativity.
His orifice of creativity.
What was I saying here?
I'm sorry.
It was very
Before I
distracting.
said
So
the
you're
word
the collective.
no
vagina,
business.
The collective and it didn't work out.
Yeah, because I had no business sense, and you thought
Chuck had stuff
was-
he was
yeah.
doing, yeah.
Chuck, yeah, so, and I decided to plow through and continue on almost out of spite.
I've done
You know what I
so
mean? That's
much in my career
motivator.
because of that.
So I was like, all right, you know what, I'm just gonna keep on doing this and see what happens. And I continued doing it. I lost the whole collaborative side of it, like a collective side of it, and it became more of just me picking on these random jobs. And some years were great and some years were terrible. I look at you guys and with the partners, and I'm so envious. 'Cause
Right? Like they found this other person.
yeah. Blame
We tried it a
brother,
little
the,
bit. We tried.
the two Donovan.
I helped them out a little bit as a producer on a couple of gigs, but it was a situation. I was still at Smiley, and I was splitting my attention. And I felt I didn't do right by him in some of those circumstances. It was when you first went to ARC,
Yeah.
because that was so. The other incident. So you had this career as a freelancer essentially. And you were Style 5, and you always looked great online, and your reel was always shit hot, and you were doing the same projects. But you'd never really taken a studio job.
No,
Like you'd done
no.
feature work and you'd
He
done
was
commercial
dying
work.
to though for so many years.
I wasn't hungry for television work. No, this is different because the work was different back then. 2008 and to 2014 ish. That's when Style 5 was
Bumping.
yeah, but the television game in Toronto was a little bit weak, and I just didn't want my name on any of that.
Yeah.
It's different now. It's different now. I think.
And you also have children.
and I have children. Yes.
So there were a couple. I mean, I remember talking to you about it at the time because we were out of the Canucks stuff, and you were still you had a lot of shit on the go at the time in terms of shorter format things. But then
A lot of
there
momentum.
were some interesting conversations that came along in terms of some feature possibilities in this area, and then one of them was ARC.
Right.
And you've always wanted to do feature.
Yeah, and this was touted as 3 mini features, and so I wanted to get that under my belt. And actually, I took the job because of a conversation with you.
Interesting.
It's
Here we go. Here
Well-
we go.
So you're welcome.
I realize now.
It's all a plan.
The bald guys win.
Well, I remember giving you the pros
Still
and
waiting for my
cons.
commission.
I remember giving you the pros and
Yeah,
cons,
yeah.
and I wanted to stay creative. I wanted to stay nimble and small, but I know working with Mattel and working with arc, I'd have to fit in a certain pipeline. And I think you challenged me saying, can you do this? Can you really do this? You've been Style 5. Can you really do this?
This is
And-
great.
And out of spite.
And out of spite, I did
You're
all
like,
my
fuck you, Mike. Yes, I can.
every arc in my career is because of spite. But it wasn't bad spite. It wasn't bad spite. But you had brought something up. You said, if you want to direct a feature, which is what I've always wanted to do, you have to know the CG pipeline.
For those kinds of features, yeah.
For
if
those
you
kind
want.
of features. And seeing the trend, most features are going to be 3D. Or should I say that?
It's fine.
It's true
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
It's
True.
reality.
There's a handful of
There's a niche
exceptions.
over here for other stuff. And
Yeah.
Yeah. In Canada, most of it will be in CG, I think. So when you brought that challenge to me, it scared me. It really scared me. I was like, oh, geez, I'm going to have to learn something new or try something different and really just kind of be vulnerable and just get thrown into this thing. I have no idea. I've never touched CG since college. Power animator, right?
Power animator.
Power,
Yeah,
right?
Alias Power Animator.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I jumped into it being really scared. I jumped into it, and it was that fear of failure, and it was the fear of being left behind. That's why I jumped into
Yeah,
it.
you were going outside your comfort zone, and you hadn't dealt with those kinds of pipelines and environments.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was a hole in my directing game that
Yeah.
that needed to be
yeah. Because
figured
quite
out.
honestly, I don't think you're ever going to suffer from not being Style 5. Like I think you're able to maintain some of that identity. It's whether it's how long can you maintain it.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm sorry, it's a tricky conversation to have.
Easy now.
But it is. It's the risk of we come back to losing yourself in the job, and you're at one of those places where because this was initially the first things you had some gigs you wanted to finish, and so that's why I came on as a producer to help him out to keep Style 5 alive essentially. Why and at ARC they gave you that room to do that, but they also still needed you.
Yeah.
So my,
It was
our
tough.
hope, our hope with him is at the same time just is like with any of some of the guys we've done is when you look at like Joel McKenzie, who works alongside of us and support of Jamie and Phil on the development side of things in Ottawa. The thing about him is that he's got multiple shorts that have ended up in different programs, whether it's been Nickelodeon or Teletoon on the French side. They've got things parked, and they've done well. And we give them the room to see if they can make that happen. I mean, this is the whole thing. We're not precious about it. If they come up with a concept, if we get to be a part of it, that's wonderful. But at the same time, we want people to still be on the creative side, to come up with their stuff, and give them either a form or support to help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
We're in a unique situation when it comes to this. I mean, here's the thing: he knows that I've been trying to get him for quite a few years. I cornered him at the animation festival, and last year. And but the idea was,
You put the sticker on my bag, right?
yeah,
because you didn't inherit him directly from ARC because you were already gone.
that's right.
I was gone, yeah.
Like they had
1 month later, then it
You
folded.
still had we're owed one paycheck. I think.
Interesting. Canary in the coal mine. I'm just kidding.
Talent attracts talent.
Yeah.
And so having people like Sam in the mix, the biggest thing is that they have the ability to foster a mentor, and the idea behind it is that we still have to be innovative and bringing more creative to the. We have the ability because of the whole Boat Rocker family situation where we have the ability to finance and distribute. To have this will give him maybe an opportunity as well to take his ideas somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, through Radical Sheep and through Michelle, who helps
But
on
as
the
long as you
development
keep him
side.
busy enough on his day job, he will never be able to actually do that, and you'll be fine.
No, well, you know, that's not
It's,
what
it's tough.
it is.
Well, I'd see that in theory, yes. Thank you. It's a great gesture to support my own creative, but directing a series with 52 episodes,
It's a lot.
it's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a
Jamie
lot.
Phil found out the same way.
I come home and
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, I'm not built for it.
spent.
I got through 10 episodes of Chirp, and that was
Yeah.
that was it for me.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a huge challenge. There's no getting around it. I think that this is the thing. is that my hope is that we get a stable of people that, you know, when shows come to an end, that we eventually get to a point where we get to hold on to the talent in between shows as well.
Yeah.
So to see if we can make that happen.
Now, and this is where, okay, because you're the 5th, 10th, 100th
Yeah.
studio in this country to
Yeah.
try this. You are.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Because it's what everybody sets out to try to do.
Sure.
You know, you want to get to a place where you can build this thing that runs itself, but you know, whatever. But that supports itself, let's say.
Sure.
And that it will carry over into a place where you can build this creative utopia for the people you value, that in their time between the shows, we can double down and invest back in our people, and because it is this wonderful, safe place, then maybe Jamie and Phil are fulfilled enough that their creative juices are flowing and they're getting heard,
Sure.
and that there's room now for other voices to be a part of that process,
Yes.
and it's the voices you've been cultivating.
That's right.
I admire that tremendously, because I think it is. It's the goal that those of us with that mind in terms of the TV world of animation, those studios, that's what you want to make. That's what you want to do. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody pull it off.
Hey, 100%. Here's the good thing about it is when you see Joel and them, he's made traction on his own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've had the ability to actually produce the demo for him, the one for Nickelodeon. We actually made it internally for him, which is wonderful. And hopefully that's the same way, where if you come up with something that we get some traction on, the only thing that we do is you have advice. You can give some insiders some input under the fact that we've been there, we've done it, we've kind of held our own content, make it out there. The hope is that we can help facilitate that more than anything else, and then hopefully supported by actually helping create it. You know, there's a win there for both sides, where you can probably participate in it at some point. But
I honestly think like you've
And at
got
the same-
the
and
best
if it
chance at it of anybody I've seen.
But
Like,
at the same time,
really,
if it doesn't end up with us, that's okay.
you have to be prepared to let it go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not for real.
100%. There's no and you want and genuinely excited and happy for them. Like, you know, Joel is on a sabbatical right now for the next 2 months. You know, he knows that he's got the safety net of coming back with us, but it gives him the ability to take that time to work on the next his next project.
And that's something that you know, on a smaller scale for us is kind of what we're trying to do. It's like we actually at the studio, Nick and I had this conversation about it, and you know, I kind of quoted Stefan Sackmeister and his whole like, you know, sabbatical view. It's like, okay, you retire at 60 and you get maybe 20 years of free stuff, and you're 6-year-old. And what he does, he put it at a graphic, is like he grabbed 1 year of each of those 20 years and spread it out every 6 years in his career, where he takes the year off to do whatever he wants. And then
fantastic.
and then so but that's and part of us taking a month off last year was for that, and we're going to try to do it this year in between what we finish now and this new project.
Good for you guys.
And that's sort of like that on a smaller scale, it's a risk because you don't make money during that time, right?
That's right.
On a bigger scale, it's like it has its own risk because your creative goes away, and then is it going to come back? But I think it can work on both. It's just still risky to walk away from work.
But okay, but this is what's unique about, I think, the people around this table. Because a lot of people understand this language. A lot of companies, a lot of people at a lot of companies understand the theoretically what you're talking about, and we hear this language all the time in terms of creator first, in terms of like all, and then in TV it's all that kind of thing, and it's all. But I think to a lot of people who are saying it, it's just language.
Sure.
And they understand that they need to do that to have these kinds of shows that do well, and they need to, and it's investing in your people and all that kind of thing.
Listen,
But until you've actually lived it somewhere,
sure.
I was very fortunate in those couple of years I had at Dynamite back in the day, that something really unique was happening there, and it happened on purpose and it happened by accident. Or let's say it's the people who were running that company enabled us to make that happen.
Sure.
To give them credit. I think the company went, when I left, I left because I felt the company was going a different way. But for a brief moment, we had that weird cooperative, collaborative thing where we have the systems, we have the computers, use them to make your shit.
Yeah.
We had a shorts program, an unofficial shorts program that were Nick Cross's first shorts, and Tavis made one, and
Sure.
Troy Little made a short, and a bunch of people made these shorts, and there was never really any question of who owned those shorts.
Yeah.
They were theirs.
But you know,
And if something came,
Yeah.
but it got so precariously close to being that thing, where because we use the same language, and if something comes out of it, great.
yeah, yeah.
And when the idea is, if you're happy enough here, you wouldn't think twice about just doing it. You're not going to go somewhere else to do it, because you're happy here. And we couldn't maintain it. For whatever reason, we couldn't maintain it.
Well, your biggest fear that happens is that even if something does get traction and does get picked up in a green light, you might not even have the capacity to do it.
Yes.
And this is why you're so excited for them no matter what. I mean, look at, we've been really, really fortunate if you look at the people that we kind of, our peers. When you look at Mike Geiger, and you look at Phil Avanusik, or you look at Kyle Marshall, we can go through a whole these guys that we know that have gotten content on air. Dave Cooper and Jamie and Phil, and you can go through the whole stuff, and it's just one of those things where you see, I get excited when you see people get something out there. Like it just, you can't help but I'm like, good for you. And listen, if you get we have a pilot, like Joel has a pilot to do. We were hoping that we had the ability to participate in it, but we can't, because you don't have the capacity for it right now. But the idea was, at least it was made available to us first. Joel was like, hey, can you? And we're like, we would love to have, if something fell through, then maybe that would have been the case that we could have been able to do it. But we're still overjoyed and happy that he gets to participate and do it and get it out there, and hopefully get some traction on it. But I think that it's something that you can be genuinely happy about it.
But okay, so and I think there might be a middle ground there where like you can't do certain things. You have to like going back to you have to put your nose to on your head down and work, and there's no you have to forget about like some of those dreams until you get either you're small enough to do it or you're big enough to do it. And I think the risk, I mean, I certainly kind of went through this, is that the risk of that is you don't know where that period starts or ends. And then in my mind, I mean, it's not a total loss, but when it comes to like my own original things, I think I lost some time because I was putting my head down.
Getcha.
And doing the work, and it's suddenly when like I could have been doing this over there, and maybe as a bigger studio you're suddenly like no right now, Sam, you got to work on those episodes, and
2 years can go by like
exactly, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
suddenly you get another job, and Sam get in that, or even individually, we finish this, and then something else comes along. And then when is
that. See, this is a little bit of danger here. A little bit of danger.
yeah. When is that point where it's hard to I mean, I'm talking more about advice in general, like the point where you just have to go, I'm gonna have to say no to this and get to work. And I like right now we're like, again, the decision to take on the series and in general is a struggle, because you go like, when do we do this other, this other films, when do we do?
Yeah.
The only thing, life choices, I think what happens too is based on how much risk. I mean, all these things start playing into your choices that you make. Like you said, when you have a family, if you've got a situation like that, or if there's a lifestyle you're trying to maintain, if there's things you want to try to accomplish in your life, it's tricky. You're right, 100%. That if you do have your head down, you don't have. If you are passionate about something, it is more challenging to do it. Even if it does affect me, I respect it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no getting around it. Like, if somebody wants to make that choice and take that step, you've got that safety net of, like, if there's an opportunity, I'll have you back into the fold at a later time.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you go...
Well, that's the whole go with the blessing thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
There
Oh
are
my
there are
goodness.
places out there where if you leave,
Completely.
I get they get
Well, that's
angry,
offended.
and
Like,
offended,
it's like,
and that's not, you're never gonna get that person back. And
Yeah.
like for me, it's always been like, great, go be awesome, and get even better.
Sure.
And because I've been nice about this, and because maybe you were nervous, like fuck it, like then when you come back, you'll be even better than you are now. Like go out and get some other experience that I can't teach you, that the people here can't teach you, and like go get even better at this, so that you're an even bigger asset. And if you've given someone that blessing, they're more likely to come back.
Oh, listen, and you're happy for them. Like,
Yeah, it can't be. You
genuine.
can't fake it. It has to be
No,
legitimate.
one of the things that happens too is like if somebody, sometimes you've got a group that's been around for a long time, so you're stealing this full, like all I wanted to become a director at some point, but all those jobs
Yeah.
are full.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, the other person's gonna go somewhere else.
Yep.
And you're
Yeah.
like, man, I get it. You go
Yeah.
do that. You need to do that if this is what you want to do in your career. I don't have the space for it anymore. And listen, it's not easy to let it go. Like you're like, oh man, we're gonna take a hit here. They're so talented.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're excited for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to be.
But you always have to be grooming the next ones.
Yeah.
Completely. And this is where the whole sort of laying out expectations, having accountability, making sure that they do grow. There's nothing worse than a person going through a full year of production and never really addressing issues that are coming up through production.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. And, you know, people that are in roles of leadership, in supervision or direction, they might not have the experience to take people aside and go, hey, listen, here's something you need to work on. Some people are uncomfortable having that conversation. We want to get them, our job is to help facilitate that and get
Right.
them good at that as well. But it's the only way we're going to grow. You know, we just had an opportunity in Ottawa to have some of our staff to work on their skills and, you know, help develop it further from where they were at. It's not that we don't think they're already talented, they already are. But usually when you're in production sometimes, in order to get it out the door.
And it, you know, that segues a little bit on something that stuck with me when you said, okay, Sam, there's a bit of a blind spot when if you want to do this sort of production, you need to learn the 3D, you know, a 3D. And it's for me, like, you know, there is something about like, well, I'm not looking for a job at a studio right now, but there is that need. I see my, you know, some of my blind spots, right? And it becomes a time management thing. Like, okay, I guess I gotta start learning to cell animate because I do it all in After Effects, right? Like I'm very confident with my illustration skills. I feel getting more confident with animating characters. But right now, I'm like, I just enrolled on a cell animation course.
Because how do you build a pipeline out of what you've been doing before?
Well, right, and also at some point you have to get better at what you do because you can't get stuck. But I think like, you know, you get too much into the production of what you're doing at that point, and again, for a smaller studio, sometimes carving out that time of the person who does things to go out and learn for a couple of months. That's once again, you know, that's the thing. And I think on a bigger studio, the economics might be a little bit different, but you still have to carve out the time to, you know, a chunk of your staff to go and develop those skills, right?
And that's not easy.
Yeah.
Like, listen, there's costs associated with it.
Yeah, well, it's all of a sudden you've got X number of people.
Yeah.
Your monthly,
Yeah.
the maintenance of just running that shop becomes this giant sum of money,
It is.
and it's got to come from somewhere. And yeah, it'd be great if there was always 6 months worth of that in the bank,
Sure.
so that you could train people in the downtime
Yeah.
and all that kind of shit. But how the fuck are you going to find 6 months worth of that?
I mean, the
Because the
dream.
numbers get really big.
The dream is to have, with the growth that you experience, you're never going to always get the best guys out of off the street. It's just never going to happen. So you know there's going to be some training involved. People that have been in the industry for 2, 3, 4 years that maybe never had the opportunity, or no one's ever spoken into them about where they had to improve. I mean, your dream is to have trainers on staff. I mean, if you can cover it,
Right.
it would be an amazing thing outside of your supervisors. It's just it's a challenge, you know.
Even a time thing. It's a zero-sum game when it comes to time. You know,
Yeah.
time, like even if you have the money to do it, just, you know, time is
Well, I think
one
that
of the
all plays into the
resources.
economics of it. So
Yeah.
those are, again, you're looking at the value. What is the value versus cost in this case? So
Really?
there's a tremendous value in that,
Yeah.
but there's also a cost. And the cost is either time or it's money or it's both. You know, so where does it come from?
Right. Did you, when you were doing Style 5, were you just at that point in your career comfortable with refining what you knew, or did you see some blind spots that you can never, like, before Mike, you know, pointed the tree, like did you make yourself, you know, time to learn new things as you went, or?
Well, up until from 2000 2008, I was at Chuck's.
Yeah.
I think it was 2010 actually, 10 years at Chuck's. I was still animating on paper and pencil, and I was pretty good. I was a pretty good animator, and
It's okay.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
right around 2006, Flash, or maybe 5, Flash started getting really big, and I knew I had to learn it, but I was really scared. So that was the first time I actually kind of took myself out of my comfort zone just to learn that. And I think that may have been the last time is learning Flash,
Right.
is me learning that software until going into CG.
Right.
But even in CG now, it's I'm not really.
No, but you're
dealing
learning the
much with
process of the pipeline. You're learning the
You
process.
understand,
Still,
yeah.
you understand the capabilities and capacity. You understand how to execute. You understand you yourself are not sitting there modeling something. You're not, you know, 'cause
Yeah.
that's not why you've been hired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the fact that you understand how to execute in that environment and can work with those kinds of deliverables and work with, I mean, that was the whole thing. I think coming back to like the two of you guys share a lot of similarities, and I think when because now to be fair, when we looked at that situation and we had that conversation, we were also looking at other situations and options there, and we did pros and cons for those too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's not like I tried to sell you down this route,
Yeah.
but it was, yes, if you want, if your goal is that you want to make a DreamWorks motion picture someday, then you have to, and right now you're not moving to LA, you know, then you look around and you say, what's the step that I'm going to be able to take here and do that and have my family here and yes, being vetted by Mattel as a director and that was, and I've seen what they've done with Max Steel since then, so I think you've got a pretty good feather in your cap. Yeah, I've seen those clips.
Yeah, we
You guys, you did a good job.
it was
You
okay.
did a good job. So, but where I don't fear for you, and I don't fear for you, you guys are artists. Not everybody is. A lot of people come into this business and they're very good at drawing and they're very good at these things. But both of you come into this because you want to tell stories and you want to make things and you have a certain manifesto, unwritten agenda, maybe. You're both pursuing something. And I think you'll both survive that process. You know, I think you can afford to go into that and learn those things, and Style 5 will survive it. And it'll come out differently at the other end, and there'll be a little gap because you took a job for a while, and you needed to, and it's a good, and right now, and financially you needed to too. You've been supporting Style 5 for a number of years.
Absolutely, yeah.
On these smaller projects and the budgets were getting smaller and smaller on a lot of them.
Smaller and
Yes.
smaller.
Yeah.
So a couple of years of having a paycheck while your kids are in daycare
Yeah.
is not the worst thing in the world, and you challenge
Daycare
yourself.
is a killer.
yeah. But also,
Montessori.
also, I think one thing that I was told once by a friend when around the time I left Kappa, because I was burned out, and I started to take a couple months off, and then my cousin actually said, like, just take the rest of the year off, just do it for us. I can't do it. And I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and I told her, like, yeah, you know, I'm taking it off, and I was afraid to take that much time off because, you know, that's you know, what's going to happen. People are going to forget about me. And I said, like, well, you know what? Some projects last. You know, that's 2 commercials, really. Some projects, you know, will be 2 months, 3 commercials. No one's gonna. I've talked to clients twice a year, maybe, so they're not even gonna feel my absence.
Yeah,
And
you've had jobs.
yeah,
Exactly. You've been
and-
off the table
exactly.
that long before.
And then she said, yeah, but you will, meaning you are gonna feel refreshed. So 2 years or like however you know long you feel you know getting a job, getting a little bit more fuel or creative fuel, whatever you need. You're right. On the long run, as a career, whether you're looking at an individual or a studio, doesn't make the difference that it makes is probably the more on the positive side than on the negative side.
Right.
Unless you sort of like get stuck on that, right?
Well, so there's always some risk in that. There's always some risk in, like I said, those studios that forgot they wanted to make shows. You know, and it's the individual artists who lose themselves in the job. Those risks are there. The good version of this story is that Sam directs a couple of features, proves himself to be dependable in terms of those deliverables, which is what we talked about in terms of studios as well. You know, he's got some potential new clients because he's got. At ARC, they were letting you have it. You were interacting directly with clients, and you now, like, Mattel likes you. You going into series, you will have done a series. You will be taken seriously by people who you may not care if they take you seriously,
You keep saying that as if I have this disdain for TV, but no, but we don't.
Sorry.
We don't.
Okay, 'cause so I won a Canadian Screen Award
Like,
last year.
just to be sure, I don't have disdain for the.
Okay, sorry, it's not that. It's
Gotta
not
look
that.
right in the camera.
Like,
My name is Hector.
Yeah.
I would love to keep working. No, okay, so something like the CSA.
Yeah.
The CSA we picked up last year. It's an interesting award to me because the awards I want. I mean, it's not that I don't want the CSA.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking amazing. That's so cool. I want a film that gets into Ottawa because I'm from Ottawa.
Right.
Those are I want to the festivals that you've been hitting. Those are the things I really, really deep down inside. Those are the ones.
Well,
that I
and
want.
you know what, you're right, because the only goal that I had, well, it changes, right? With the last film, the only goal that I had is like, I wanted the cities to do the music, right? And then they said yes. And I was like, okay, I'm satisfied with this. And then the next goal was just like, I want to get into TIFF because it's hometown. It's a hometown festival, and I just wanted to get it. And after that, everything was gravy. But of course, you know, then Berlin happened, and then the CSAs happened, and then you get into the CSAs, and that means you're on the long list for the Academy Awards. So then suddenly you're like, yeah, and it's so easy to lose yourself on that. That's, you know, it is important, but it's also like.
But for me, because for you the CSA was a short film, which is for me it was we were up against Fangbone. You know, we were up against all these like shows,
Right,
and we were the little guy in the bunch. But the award doesn't have important. It's so strange because I remember if you told me 10 years ago that I was going to win an award like that, that would have been like the most amazing thing.
Absolutely, right?
And it would have, but I used to also look up to those guys who like didn't give a fuck about awards. And I thought they were so cool, and I just knew I was never going to be that cool because I gave a fuck about awards.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
They were lying, all of them.
They must have been,
All
right?
of them.
They're all
They're
lying.
like
So
this,
Nobody doesn't
but I
care
get to the
about
other end, and I'm not not as rabidly excited about that award as I might have been at one time. And I think I came to it kind of naturally because I also know that got a CBC vote. A lot of people voted for it, never saw it because they don't know animation because it's everybody who votes and all that. So you see, you know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
At the same time, I know the value of that award for my career. I know that when I go back in to pitch something, I'm a CSA award. So
Right.
while I may not actually care that much about that award, and that's wrong, but there are people that I need to. People that care about that award, I'm glad they do.
Yeah.
Because they can also unlock things for me. And so those awards are valuable that way. And even so, I said, for me, this is a kind of a complicated one. It's a weird one because I almost feel like that guy said, "Fuck it, I don't care." But it's great. I've delivered that, and it gives me some legitimacy. You doing a TV series, you will have delivered that, and that'll give you that legitimacy from people that maybe you didn't know you needed legitimacy from.
And you know, when we were trying to figure out the production stuff for that, when we were doing development, I actually, that's when I called our mutual friend Warren Brown, who used to work at Kappa with us, and he's been doing Big Box Sing Song for I don't know, it's their show.
Yeah.
It's two people. It's a two-person crew that has been doing like, I don't know, 3 seasons of it already.
They're on like their 567th episode.
Yeah,
It's insane.
It's insane. It's insane. And
I'm rounding up a little bit, but
but it's the same thing. And I called him to like for some advice, you know, and I just said, okay, well, this is the thing. Is obviously, you know, the money's kind of tight, and you know, what do you think? And he goes like, again, lifestyle choices. You can. You know, like, what do you want right now? And he said, like, you know, at the very least, what you're gonna get out of this is you have a series under your belt, and if you need to go in do like your original material, you can prove it. And you're right, it's about as much as it's about you caring about accolades or certain projects or things. A lot of those decisions come from like, are the people who are gonna open doors for me? How much do they care for for those as well, right? And yeah, at the end of it, you know, you end up with something like the awards, like, you know, festival stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
You've made a series. You're now vetted.
You
that
won a
way.
CSA. You've won a CSA.
Yeah.
Your CSA probably is directly related to your new gig, your new series. I think you wouldn't have gotten the series.
I know.
if not
You're
CSA.
right, and I think we mentioned it yesterday because a lot of when they showed the broadcaster, okay, who or these jokers that are you want them to do the series. We've never heard of them, and then they, it was all based on literally stuff that probably we paid out of pocket for, like our films and all the TED, and all the TED stuff, and that stuff. That's not what pays the rent for us. But nevertheless, it's gonna be paying the rent for a year now.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's about who cares about
This
Yeah.
it could create more freedom for you, because you are as a corporate entity, you've delivered something of a scale that you had yet to deliver,
Right.
and you've satisfied clients that will make other people comfortable with you.
Like you guys did this so that the next person that comes along will feel that much more comfortable,
Yeah.
giving you maybe that much more
Well,
money.
and it's the same thing that happened with you guys with that's your story. You said like you were doing all this stuff, and then your sinking ship partners like came on board and said like it's because you put in all this effort that we're you. Again, all those things that you mentioned, the AMCRO, all that stuff, and all the stuff that you were basically,
It's
getting
just
the money.
being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, with the right set of skills.
With the right set of
Well,
skills.
you only
right?
get to that place because you can deliver.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
because if you can't, you're gonna. You're in the right place because of the quality of work you did.
It always goes back to managing expectations, right?
Yeah.
Like if you've got because just landing a series is the first step.
Oh, God.
Successfully completing that
Yeah.
series
Yeah.
is really the final step. Everyone feeling good about it. Because I've been on just complete shit shows of series before, but everyone involved was aware that it was a complete shit show,
Yeah.
and that communal understanding, you still maintain your street cred. It's like there was just no way that was gonna win.
And you know what? That
You know?
I remember like being in university and stuff and watching like commercials or like things and being like all ignorant about how things and we're like, why would they do it this way? Don't you see that it's so easy to do that? And then once you start working, I have like once I see there's things that you see like in case of commercials or series or TV or movies that you go like that was a bad directorial decision, and you can see when it was just too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That was and you just don't.
Now you know why.
Well, and you understand the art like as an artist. It's a tough thing to
It's a minefield.
to do
Yeah.
to do that. And once you have a little bit of a taste of it, you understand that people are making choices based on not just their own, and you're right. It's only like everybody. You still have the respect of the entire industry.
Everyone, just as long as everyone knows. But if it's one of those where you just fuck the dog, you drop the ball and you screwed up. Like this is when Super Simple Learning came to us with the first two music videos. Those two videos did not go the way that I would have wanted a project to go. It went long. The budgets weren't great, so it kept kind of getting pushed for the stuff that was paying money,
Right.
where we had really hard deadlines that we had to get through. And when we delivered the two videos, the guys left, and Brent and I were like, well, we're never going to hear from them again. And like 6 some odd months went by. And then out of the blue, I get an email from the guys, and they had 25 more music videos for us. And Brett and I were like, holy shit. They weren't in on it. They didn't know that we completely screwed it up. And in the end, we ended up starting a company with those guys.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that is too the standards that you have on yourselves, right? Like there's many times where I deliver things and just go like, well, fuck it, next time it'll be better, Like it's like
I'm actually kind of fresh on one of those.
but that's because of the standards you put on
Yes,
yourself, and
yeah.
because then suddenly people go like, oh, this is great, and they keep calling you back. And sometimes it happened to me that 6 months later, I take a look at it, I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
It's not that bad.
Still there's a couple things there that I'm not going to
It's
show that.
so
but,
funny you put that. There are projects that I cannot watch that I've worked on. Like they're out there and they're either still on air or they're on TV, and I cannot watch them because the trauma of the production is still there.
They can have nothing to do with the actual quality of the
Yeah,
production.
it went over great. Client was thrilled. Everything's great. I can't. It's done. It's out. I don't
Honestly,
watch it.
I can't watch Curse of Clara.
Oh, really?
The one I won the CSA for, I can't watch.
But you know, that's the same thing. Like with even with Immortal Joe, there's things in it right now that I look at, I'm like, oh shit, like okay, you know. And I remember when we were at TIFF, I was in sort of like a little round table, and they were talking about like, you know, something about learning, you know, through the process, and when you finish you start a film and finish a film, and or how do you take the learning process to different films. And I said, and when it comes to me, and this is going to ring true to all of us here in here, because I said, you know, the issue with animation is it takes so long, and you learn with every little thing you do.
Yeah.
And the problem with making an animated film is that you finish and you look back at the first shot you did,
Yeah.
and you go like, that could have been better, and maybe
You've
you can
already
go back and
evolved.
you can go back and fix it, but you
halfway through a
can't.
season.
But you can't go back and redo it because
No.
it's going to
Yeah.
be never
No.
ending. You know?
And that's
Yeah.
so that's fun. It's
100%.
because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the thing. Every kid coming out of school, like I used to do this thing with my students at Algonquin called the 30-second film challenge, and it's convincing these guys and the ones who just want to be guys who make films,
Yeah.
and that they'll redo the same thing. They'll keep, you know, you're only as good. Like your next film
Yeah.
will be as good as the last frame of your last film.
That's exactly.
But I would think for everyone here, and even though I'm not an artist, like I'm not, I mean, I'm an artist in some things, but not in this specific thing. So here's a little bit of my own history. So my dad had a studio. I grew up in the industry. It was all I ever knew.
Everyone knows your dad, by the way.
Everyone knows my dad, by the way. I get that a lot. When we first started the studio, there were a lot of, especially commercials, agency producers who had been around for a while be like, "Are you Bob Fortier's daughter?" And I'd be like, "Right, well, this is going to be a hoot.
Yeah.
I'm going to work with Bob's daughter. How's your dad?" I'm like, "He won't know who you are. It's not going to work out." But when
I actually worked for her dad.
yeah, and Sam worked for my
I
dad.
don't think he was very fond of me.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's not very fond of me. It depends on the day. But when I graduated from university, when I entered into the industry, and I didn't want to get into animation. I wanted to get into something different, and it was just where I found work. And I made it my choice. It was my goal. Was I didn't want to ride on my dad's coattails. I wanted to have a name and an identity my own. And there's no avoiding it. There's no, when you bump into people, because my dad's been sort of a staple in the industry for so long, there's no avoiding the last name. For a while, my dad was introducing me as his like third wife. I was like, it's only funny to you. It's not funny to anyone else when they find out who I am. And eventually, I really worked hard at that. Like I didn't want to call back on that because I grew up with, just because of who we were, and you end up having friends in your own industry. There were other, sons and daughters of directors who totally rode on those coattails. I never wanted to be that person. And eventually the day came where my dad got asked the question, "Are you Morghan Fortier's father?" And that was awesome. And that's when I knew, like, okay, here we go. This is where I can go with it. And you never stop growing and learning and evolving. I think the minute you kind of go like, yeah, I got it, I got this, there's nothing left to learn. There's nothing left to improve on. There's nothing left to get better on. It's time to either find another career or move on in a different direction. I think that's why even when we're chocked full with work, Brett is always still creating something. It's just constantly going.
And not only that, like, just to bring it back to this, is that yes, you always grow, but sometimes you feel like, especially with animation, because the production itself takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. You need to
within the same film.
Yeah.
You feel like you feel just by the virtue of making the film, you're getting better.
That's the one thing about having the
deadline.
deadline, right? It's like you eventually have to say
Yes.
it's good enough.
Yeah.
You got it. Okay, we got to wrap it up and let it
Or
go.
you just like, I'm more like, at home, like Bazina and I always struggle because she likes to like go and it's a good balance because she sometimes makes me know we gotta fix that.
Yeah.
And I'm more of like, next time, let's get it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a commercial environment. It's,
You gotta-
it's like
they gotta let it go.
just get-
So I used to talk about with Rich Duhaney.
Rich approaches everything with a scalpel. And I sit with him and said, "But dude, today you need to use an axe." And it's that simple. Sometimes it is that. Like we can't do it this way. It's a broad stroke that has to be done to move forward, so we're gonna hit that deadline. And it's not that Rich can't, Rich is amazing. He's the guy's just finished directing a feature.
But it is this thing where it's like sometimes you just have to do the bold thing and just move ahead.
Yeah.
But sometimes when we've got team members who are like this as well, where they just get so caught up in the reads. And so you have to step in and go, okay, we're going to implement, I'm going to give you artificial deadlines within what you're doing. So you go in and you're going to do one full pass, and then you're going to do a second to feel comfortable, and then you're posting it, and then you get the third.
And we're going to get like technical, and you probably have this at the zero too. Like when I was teaching, because my course was called Animated Illustration, because it was at OCAD, it was the illustration program. And I developed the course, and the difference that some of those kids needed to, like the switch they needed to flip on their head, is that they were used to working for hours on one image. One image. And it's great when you're like, open a magazine and you see it. And I had to say, you guys cannot do this and this thing. And a lot of it was just learning. Sometimes I would say like, okay, put all the texture that you want, put all the detail that you want, and then let's see that 2-second shot.
Why?
Yeah.
And then they saw it, and they would be like, okay. And then the good thing is that they were working digitally, and sometimes be like, okay, turn that off now.
Yeah.
And then watch the scene again, and it made no difference.
So this is the brilliant thing about animation and film, and is that so a magazine and an illustration you can look at forever. It doesn't live in time.
Yeah.
It lives on a plane. It lives on a surface, and I can read a comic book and I can lose myself in a panel because it's beautiful. And animation is anything you watch on film is basically over the minute you start watching it, and all you really have is your recollection of it. So it's a series of fast-moving images that leave an impression, and it's the impression that's important, because if you freeze frame anything, it's going to be weird. It's not going to work. It's not meant to be viewed that way. It's meant to be viewed using time, and that's I struggle with that when I've tried to animate.
I struggle so much. I came from a print. I went to school for graphic design.
I'm a character designer, and animating itself is a thing that's like my brain doesn't actually move into that other dimension. It is another dimension that your brain has to live in. And all that really matters is that finished product. And you need enough of it to have left the right impression. Like it's a completely different way of thinking, and you can't get lost in a pretty picture.
No, and because because of deadlines, because suddenly it's like, okay, well, what can the point of what I try to teach those students, but especially because of our illustration students, is they would say like, you got to find the balance. At what point do you start peeling out the layers before you start losing the actual the actual aesthetic, the content, the personality. Whatever it is, and that means like anything from like, do we need a walk cycle here, or do we just frame things, from the waist up,
Let's be economical in how you present it. It's funny. I think it's the I've had this conversation with, especially people who are entering into the industry, and they're gunning to like, I want to start my own thing. I want to do my own thing. It's like the one thing that you have to keep in mind is, well, you've had all the time to work on your own personal projects, your own personal thing. And then sometimes, depending on your course, you've had a whole year to work on like a minute worth of animation. I'm like, my God, what I could get done in a year. But it's that you are now, not only are you now going to enter into an environment with deadlines, but it's now no longer your piece.
Oh,
the
that is
minute
the
someone is paying you to do the work, it is their work.
That is the thing. And also, like, just having a crew, when I started, because again, I used to do everything. When I started actually at a cup of coffee, and I started directing a cup of coffee, that was my first job, actually directing something. And I felt like I didn't do shit on a project because I was the director. I didn't feel ownership, even though I've done the style frames, I've done the storyboards, I've done it, but the actual animating, I had a crew. And it took me like a year to say no. It took me, Les Godfrey. And it took me when he said to me like, it's like you're like an orchestra conductor. You don't play any of the instruments. You just make sure that everything goes well and
you want to, and it's that fine line where you kind of like you need to guide and direct, but you also kind of want to step out of the way so that the people who are, depending on the project, like on a series it's a lot harder, but on a commercial project you kind of want to step away so that people can bring to the table what they are going to bring to the table.
You have to maintain the feeling that it's yours too.
Yeah.
Like
that unified vision all the way through.
You are the one who it's partly yours.
And that brings us back to this whole like leading the hierarchy, leading the studio, those kinds of things. And it is like it's
coming through the trenches and being someone who like the old adage of like the best general is right there. Exactly that where the trenches come from. The whole statement comes from is that you lead by example because you're the first person to do it. I just completely lost my train of thought.
But I'll hop on this.
Please.
When you're for studio running, like it's a good point. Like the further up you kind of go, the less kind of involved you are, and the more the job shifts into being a communicator and a mentor, and just it's leadership, and then it's also just trying to deal with the other side, politics, and it's less about. You get to sit down and actually execute the stuff, and it's all the chess game.
And I've seen like studio heads just be like lose it, over that, just lose their way over that, like just suddenly be either too involved on some of the projects, not involved enough in others, and have like as someone who's worked under that, it's like so so how much freedom do I have, and how much do I have to come to you? And it's something that I've always wanted to avoid. Like
it's why I'm there at 8:30 every morning, and I'm hopefully one of the last people at the door at the end of the day.
Well, my whole thing is when you're looking at the creative, right? I mean, the guy that runs the production is the director, right? And the whole idea behind all of it is just giving him everything that he needs to do the job. It's one of those things when you look at the director's role in everything that you're trying to do is just empower him on a consistent basis and support them. It goes back to that whole knowing your role.
Yeah.
Like here's the thing, Jamie and Phil, if they're not directing on a show, they can provide advice and input, give you a little bit of insight, go through scripts, talk about storyboards, go through all that stuff. But ultimately, you're trying to give that person that opportunity to have their voice.
Yeah.
Because we know what it's like to not have it ourselves.
Yeah.
Year in, year out. One of the biggest challenges that happens in most productions is direction by committee.
Well,
And so the idea is that because we've walked through it ourselves, well, make sure that you give somebody an opportunity to do it. You know, if you can insulate them.
Because it's not that shouldn't be a democracy. I mean, I'm not saying it should be a dictatorship. And I'm just saying it's like you have
It's
roles.
a benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah,
is
it has
actually
to
where-
be. No, but that's what people get. They hire people for directors for their vision.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're there for. You're not there to animate. You're not there to necessarily. Like you're not there to if you need to. Hopefully you have animated. Hopefully you have it. But your main role there is to keep everything. What is the vision, and that's it.
In TV animation, most directors are hired to maintain someone else's vision.
Well, that's the
like if
thing. I
you're
was
a
going to say, it
showrunner,
depends
like,
on the
there's a
client,
difference
right?
between a showrunner
Yeah,
and-
like it depends on the
and-
client.
yeah.
Sometimes you're brought
that's where
in.
it's an odd distinction, and it's
Yeah.
like because I wish it were more like the live action feature film world where. You made a couple of shorts, like what you do. You make a couple of shorts, and then someone scouts you to make a feature, and you're hired because of your vision. Because and when I'm working as a development person, that's how I kind of look at it. Because I'm a guy who draws pictures, but I also don't have a whole lot of, to a fault, not a lot of creative ego around my own ability to draw pictures. I go out and I try to find the right person for the right job, and maybe that's where I'm more comfortable in a creative producer role. Because it is that. You want to then give them the tools to execute. You want to then give it, because that's going to make the show the best show possible. And if I'm going to piss all over it and try to micromanage it, then I'm just wrecking it.
Or you don't have the right person in the right job.
Yes, then it's
Yeah.
not the right person. You're right.
Like, sorry, it's just going back to something you just said. Like, okay, so there's the film. Like, I always draw more like from like how to do the work from music. Like, you create an album, it's yours, and you do it. And same thing goes for film. And you mentioned TV, at least for animation TV right now, it's like this is the vision.
Depends on that end client, but yes.
But
Yeah.
wait, but like right now, like you look at American television right now, it's going through like a great moment where you have like an overall arc story with it's going to end. Most series now that we like, they're going to end, and we're fine with it. Or you have miniseries where you have like here's like John Adams, for example. This is just the 1, 5, 6, 2 hours episodes. And like, do you see that happening to animation television, where there's miniseries or just like one-offs, or like an arc where it's like 3 seasons long and then we're done?
Over the garden wall.
Yes. Yeah. But that's how many? How is that a trend that might happen?
I don't know because it's only happened once. There's something really interesting about that project, and I don't know. I was not there. I'm not part of it. I have no knowledge. But when I look at it and I see things that
Because I look at it from a business perspective. There's no reason why that should have gotten made. From the way we would think here in Canada from a business perspective.
Well, even in America, like it's
No,
Well-
it's the smartest thing that they could have done.
Yeah.
It was a no-win situation for Cartoon Network, and the fact that they were smart enough to see it that way is fucking brilliant, because they had 3 ways that could go. Like it was, we are a company that says we are artist first, and we're all about creative vision, all that kind of thing, but we need these kinds of hits that do this kind of thing and sell bed sheets. But let's take we got this fucking weird little project that we don't understand, but the artists seem to be really jazzed about it. So here's the thing. Let's say we make it, and we give them all this creative freedom to do it however they want. They can hire whoever they want. They get to do this thing. It's a mini-series, and it makes no sense to us as executives. So let's say we make it, and it fails. Then we've got all these we took a chance on you guys. You were wrong, and now you're going to feel just fine doing what you're told. Right? That's the worst case scenario for them. That the executives were right, that thing flops, and now you guys are going to go back to being quiet and doing your jobs. Or critically acclaimed and doesn't do any business. So isn't it great the Cartoon Network took a chance on us? We got all this acclaim.
But that project was great for them because it changed, it gave a meaning to TV viewership.
Yes.
Because when you look at the digital landscape and how many eyeballs are getting pulled from TV, what that miniseries did was it was an event, it was a TV event. It was a must-see event that, hearkening back to like when TV was first...
an event,
when it was an
television,
event.
an NBC television event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they got the third option happened, which is the ultimate, it was critically a success.
Yeah.
And it did numbers.
Yeah, it was huge for them to
So
the
there
point where
was-
I think they're trying to find like other
So there was
keep
no
doing those
lose
stunts.
for Cartoon Network in it, because
Yeah.
even the lose at least puts those temperamental artists back in their place. You know, like it's one of those kinds of things. And they got the perfect thing out of it,
Yeah.
because they got something that makes them money. They can merchandise. They got every award there is, and they proved that they were the kind of studio and company that they would like to be seen as.
I find
do we gonna have an HBO type animation network where we see that, or like we see television events, or we see like
it's
is
tough.
That
I mean, the TV. I think you will see it more. Like we're right now, Brett's in Annecy with I forgot the name of our show, Super Science Friends. In the block that we're screening, BoJack Horseman is like right next to us. We couldn't be more thrilled to be in that block with BoJack. Like, that's a Netflix original. I think that's where you're going to see those shows. Like, I look at Archer, where you look at those independent seasons on Archer, and it's like, it's following a full story arc each season, and then it could just end at the end of that season. That could be it. And then they come back with, lately, these seasons have been like just a reinvention of the franchise. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's still taking the risk, right? I haven't watched it yet. Don't spoil it for me. I have to see it through.
Yeah.
But BoJack is like, it's a drama series.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Like it is a hard, F is for Family is a hard fucking show to get through. It is like, and it's interesting because there used to be this mandate of like, this is taking us off topic from what we were here to talk about, but there used to be this mandate that you would want to take advantage of an animation medium. You would want to do things that you can't do in live that you can only do in animation.
Yeah.
And now you're doing like drama narrative that
But
just,
King of the
just
Hill,
shoot it
King
live,
of the Hill
man.
started that, right?
Yeah.
was one that did it.
But it's like Netflix is just like embracing that stuff. And so in the digital side of it, I think there's, and I'm biased because it's now the world that I live in, but I think there's a lot more risks being taken
No,
in that end of
absolutely,
it than you get on TV
yeah.
per se. So having event television on TV
what
is
I'm
where
saying
it
because
goes.
of the television is that it might come with the budgets of that television has, whereas opposed to the budgets of online would have, and then maybe the budgets that television again over the garden wall might be like a perfect example.
And like, I don't think anybody knows what a Netflix budget. Look, I think they keep that so guarded. I don't think there's any info really out there to see it. And you hear stories of like, I think there was a press release a couple of weeks ago that Zuckerberg's offering $250,000 an episode for Facebook originals. Like, so you see where it's going. It's like Snapchat originals, where everybody's doing animated content for Snapchat to try and get stuff out there.
Talk about a flood of things being pitched to Facebook right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with someone last week, which is like the problem with Facebook original. YouTube, I'm creating content that I can put elsewhere.
Yeah.
I can put it on Amazon Prime. It's a format that's going to be. But Snapchat, why am I going to invest so much in a
you can even host
Snapchat
it
format?
yourself. if all of that falls apart, you can even host
Yeah.
your own content yourself.
Yeah, and it's what we're doing with Super Science Friends. But it's like, if I'm going to make something for specific for niche for Snapchat, which I still don't fully understand because I'm old, I don't get it.
I don't even
So Facebook is a whole other thing. It's like I'm going to literally produce for a single format. Like I'm gonna double down on beta. You know what I mean? On Blu-ray and not the DVD it's so tough.
Yeah.
But it's funny how the industry, no matter where you're going, radio's dead. It's not. Everyone listens to podcasts. It's like TV's dying. You get event television. It all goes back.
But
right?
it's different. It's a weird resurgence of all type of thing. It's like you think about the radio formats that I guess we're safe to say we all grew up here in the 90s.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam, you seem younger. It's a. But it's like the radio was like MTV, like it was all quick and fast and now you think about it, like I only listen to like it's an hour-long or 3-hour-long podcast. That's my main thing when I'm listening to music. So now there's this long conversations. You look at advertising and right now, especially online, you have one ad at the beginning of the content and that's it. You don't have this sort of like in between.
Yeah.
YouTube gets a little bit quirky in the middle, but it's like usually the one, and it's like, this show brought to you by,
Yeah, it's
this
like
one.
it's like the old the old sponsored shows from the
Yeah.
50s and
Nice to
60s.
see. Yep.
It is nice to see, but I still think like again, TV is not going to die because it's just going to become
It's
narrow.
just different
but,
mediums. It's just different mediums.
But I'm just thinking like you have something like a Game of Thrones, and that each episode is like so expensive. But I mean, there's a point where they can do it. They can put in that money because they know it's going to end. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, we
Yeah.
know that we're gonna we made the investment of X million, like I don't know how many millions, like the entire series cost. But they go like, that's it. We can afford to do that because even at this point, they can afford to do it because they made so much money off of it already, right?
Yeah.
And they know it's gonna end. And it's gonna finish. But with TV, there's always this. It seems like we're still at a point where it's like it has to make the same amount of money every time. It needs to be as exploitable every time.
It's so funny. Like I was talking with somebody about this the other week, and even if you look at the pattern, the majority of shows that get greenlit now have a book. Have a popular book franchise that has started it, right? So like American Gods, Game of Thrones, like all those big things have a book to it. And this is a friend who has a property, and it's already in existence in a different medium, and the
But not the animated shows.
But it's not an animated project yet, and so they're like, maybe you should make some books out of it. And you're like, why are we going just go forward?
No, but there's a point there because FF Family is not based on anything except Billboard's own comedy.
Yeah.
BoJack is also like an original thing, and any good animated series right now, they're all original.
It's
they're
an
not
original.
They're not based on
The live is all going to be based off books.
But you're talking about primetime adult. It's tougher. You guys, it's what you set out to do. It's what you sold. You already. There's an expectation from you guys that original properties are going to come out because the thing started.
That's right.
But
It's still one of those things where you have to continue pushing that message out there that this is what we do.
Yeah. You have to remind every new generation.
That's it.
Right? Like in the industry. Like every new generation that comes up, you got to remind them who you are again.
So you have to be on the road. You got to make sure that they're out there. You have that FaceTime with them, letting them know this is what you're doing, what you're generating. They still want to know that they have the strong creative. I think they like the idea, and I think this is very, very important that even though we're a service studio, that we have strong creative
Yeah.
in the studio.
do you
It's
ever
excellent.
feel like there's a fear though, in that they want your A team, and if you go on your own shows, and you go on their shows, your team's going to be on your own show.
This is why over the years, and that's always been the case, and so we've had to prove through. So we have two Nickelodeon shows. Yeah.
And I feel like there's a studio responsibility for that.
And you're introducing new names. This
Yeah.
is the one thing that we have you can talk, you have a stable of people that work with you that are becoming your senior staff, and the biggest and most important thing that we've done is once they're front and center, they're on the Skype calls, they're on the read-throughs, they're going through the Leicas with them before we execute on the animation. So they're seeing all the faces now. And we drop names, and we do it on purpose.
So many places can't do that.
Because if you drop names, this is what I'm thinking is that you say that name along enough as you go through production, and they see the results of the content that you're giving them and providing them, they're starting to associate that name with that quality.
Well, it's like when
It's
Sam
important.
left, no one knows who you were because your name was never dropped,
Yeah.
at that point. And
Oh, listen, I know it's important that these people, because at the same time they also take ownership.
Yeah.
Because once they're face front and center in front of the client, it's like, okay, oh crap, I'm responsible for this. My name is now attached to whatever goes out the door.
Yeah.
So there's an ownership piece where they're working that much harder to make sure that what comes out the door is at a level they're going to be happy with.
and well, speaking of that, there is a thing that happened. I don't know how much of you want to need to cut this out, but but Cup of Coffee had that issue. Yeah, it had that issue, and that's why because the whole thing was that it was a studio. This is even before you and I were there.
Yeah.
It was a studio, and the reel was the studio's reel. So it was Cup of Coffee's studio reel. And then when the Headgear guys wanted to have their, according to the
Urban
legend, it wanted to have individual reels, like director reels. There was a conflict, so they left, right? And when we were there, I mean, I think at that point I didn't have the foresight, or I was just on board with it's a studio reel, I felt really good, there. But you're right, you get out, and I mean, they knew us mostly because we went to meetings, we went to other places. But the awards, all the awards were that we won were Cup of Coffee. And that's what the award says. It doesn't say anywhere.
So my brother works in the commercial industry. He has a basement.
Yeah.
He has like an edit shop. So it would appear to be one of the lesser glamorous aspects of it.
And commercials, they're rock stars.
Editors are rock stars.
Editors are rock
And
stars.
so
I don't joke when I say Nick is. I mean, he is an actual
So
rock
rock
star,
star,
but
but
he's
he's also an
an
editor.
editor rock star. He's he's an actual rock
And I
star.
find it interesting to see, so the people that are in that, because there's a whole side of the animation of the commercial industry
Yeah.
that is the edit shops, and the business goes with the editors, and they move like when someone wants to move on, he's worried that they're
Same thing with directors, right? In the commercials, but in animation, in the studio.
In animation, they're very.
So when his company wins an award, it's the editor that wins the award.
Well, I think when you look
And
at
that's great for his company, but it's the editor.
I look at animation director, art director, composer, and editor. When you go through all of those people, they're all key and play a huge part of what's ending up on the screen.
Yeah.
I think all of them should be acknowledged individually for their accomplishments and what they've done for a studio.
Sorry, I meant back in when we started. And I think
Yeah.
that's what Chuck came up for.
Yeah.
The prevailing philosophy was that the studio was the studio, and everybody who came in they wanted the flexibility of whoever was doing something, it was the studio.
Well, it's interesting because it gets.
changed now.
It's also, I feel and this is just pure opinion, but I feel it's part and parcel with how the industry is set up in Canada, because it's very geared towards service work with production service credits. So having opportunity to come forward to your original point, how do you do original creative? And also we only have so many broadcasters to pitch to. So the original creative stuff is lacking. Yes, there are definitely rock stars in Canada, but there aren't as many when you look at out of Canada when you look internationally, right? It's just there's a competitive edge that's missing there. I think that's indicative to it. I saw something very different when I was embedded in Spin, when we were doing a series out of Spin VFX. And with a VFX studio, that company is only as strong
As
its flame artist or its effects guy. And if they've got somebody who's won Academy Awards, that's what's going to get them shows. They flaunt it. It's they want to bring that talent in because that's what strengthens it. And you don't get that a lot in studios.
You guys are doing it the way I think.
But it's rare because I don't think you get it through a lot of other studios. What you guys do, I don't think you see in other studios. It's just you have your directors, but they're not put out there.
And I think that's part of the mandate that we're trying to fulfill with Startoon as well, is that we're looking at taking individual creators, these talented people, and I know that as of last year's group, the broadcasters that we put in the room as our judges walk away with some names.
Yeah.
Matt Haynes gets contacted directly because they like what he does.
Yeah, like I've gotten phone calls over the last couple of years with people going like, I've got an opportunity for a feature film. I need a director, and I'm like, well, I can give you a bunch of names of directors. They're like, yeah, they have to have a feature film. And it's like, well,
That's 3 people.
and I believe they're all busy, probably doing feature films. But yeah, because those names don't necessarily get bolstered out there. I think that's part and parcel. Studios are afraid to lose their talent. They're afraid to get people poached, so they keep it really quiet.
But also,
But you have to be prepared to.
but just like you said, like you have to know that at some point, I'm happy for you.
Yes.
Go
And
for it.
I just assume that they're courted on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Right,
And if-
yeah,
and if
yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing-
yeah,
And if
yeah.
you're doing your job
Yeah.
and running the kind of studio you should be, then they'll have no reason to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think
That's a really good point.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah.
because you see it on a consistent basis that it goes back to that whole statement we made earlier, which was there's more jobs than people. That studios are looking for that person that's going to anchor their production, and they're going to look at the productions that are doing well, and look at the staff that are on them.
And it's also what you did, like with Sam,
Well,
you quartered him
yeah.
like all the time.
Yeah.
This is exactly like you suspect other people doing exactly what you do. So
And you know what?
you shouldn't feel badly about it. You're looking for the best people.
I think what it is too is I think most of the time too is just be out there on a consistent basis going, hey, I'm looking.
Yeah.
Where it's not usually, most of the time it's not direct solicitation. It's just, hey, you want a job fair, you do it every 4 months. Somebody will come in, to me now, at a certain level of senior staff, it's going to be the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, when it comes right down to
That's
it,
what
it's
we
like,
found too.
Yeah.
It's got to be the work.
And I
It
think
is
that,
getting interesting that way right now. Is that how do you compete in this market? Money, lifestyle, the project, all those things factor in.
all of it now.
Like where your studio is based. The talent don't want to have to go out to Hamilton.
Lifestyle, stability, just having the peace of mind that, it's a tricky thing, for an awful lot of people that might have been a little bit more adventurous earlier on in their career.
Yeah.
Well, like I was listening to the podcast that where Mike Geiger was, and
Yep.
he actually, it stuck with me that he said, well, moving out of Ottawa was going to be an issue, working, and he said, fortunately, they were cool with me staying here, but that was going to be a big decision whether he was going to take that job or not, right? And again, fortunately, that's not something you can do in the 90s or early 2000s, but now you can. But
Yeah.
but you're right. It's like at a certain level, it is the project, it is the lifestyle, it is where you are. It is like how long do I have to walk, drive, or move to get to the job.
And I think it's changing too, that you can work remotely.
Yeah.
And so you have, not in every position, but for a lot of key roles, senior roles, you can still do it. I mean, without uprooting your families. And I think that's a big thing now.
Well, the fantastic Mr. Fox was basically directed,
In a
to Skype.
hotel, he was in
Yeah.
Paris the whole time?
Yeah.
In a hotel room in Paris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to take us just a quick second about a little bit. Why don't we end on a hopeful note and look at the future? For each of you guys, where you're at, what there's some expectation, or even like what are you hoping to have happen? You guys are you're all at various points with your shows. You're all at various points of. I mean, you're at this. I don't think you ever thought you'd be where you are right now.
Nope.
No, I really honestly, that's fair, right?
No, we had ambitions to expand.
Sure.
Not this fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jamie and Phil are on the verge of getting their own content on air, as just servicing their needs. I mean, that's probably always getting into our own IP. I think that's the next step, and I think we're going to be able to do that hopefully sooner than later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take that.
Yeah.
You.
Well, we're about to jump into this exciting, thing, but I see there's a couple of other like film projects that we want to do, and that's what it excites me the most. To get that balance between the kind of work that I wanna do and our original work, and have not have to take jobs for taking the job's sake, but taking the jobs because we believe in it, and then that leaving us enough time and resources to do our own things. Obviously, the fantasy is that you just do your own things, but it's a fantasy because where's the money is going to come from that, right?
Right.
But that's that. Right now, it's exciting to get into this new thing the series thing because it was not planned, and but it's still, you know, I like we like to embrace it, and it's like now it's, you know what, we're at a position where the future is exciting because the future is so nebulous with us that is just like, okay, well, here we go. And for the last couple of years we kind of knew where we were going, and we kind of liked it, but now it's nebulous in an exciting way. And I think, you know, talk to me a year and a half from now, and then we'll see where we are. But I think we're gonna come out of it at least with something under our belts, if not just the experience of knowing the direction we want to take. You know, if we don't like this, we know now that that's not the direction we want to take. But if we like it, or if it opens other doors, then that's great too. And it's always original stuff for us. That's the main thing.
You? What happens? What happens with Style 5?
I don't know.
Not to risk your current situation, not to give too much away as to any bargaining chip you might need later on.
In the near future, I hope the show I'm working on now becomes a huge hit. I'm a studio guy now.
Thank you very much.
Cody Kapow, July 15th, and Sprout. Make it #1. Plug done. Plug is done. I want my own IP as well. Yeah, I'm developing right now. I'm developing City Girl. It's a feature. I'm writing with Ellery Van Duijwerd. We're developing Just Adam, last year's runner-up on Startoon. And another series we're developing called Toy Hunters. And I hope to see those shows.
And your biggest priority out of all that, of course, is your current Startoon submission.
Yeah.
That
Robo Ninja Raptor.
you gotta know the name. Robo Ninja Raptor and
Murfairy.
Princess Murfairy.
Wow.
All right, your turn.
Oh God, I don't even know. We're heading into our second seasons of some of the shows that we launched in September, which is fantastic. So we've got some successes that are working, and we're probably going to be, this is on the Skyship side, expanding channels. I'm in the midst of doing prototypes for plush off of some of our IP, and just all sorts of stuff that's going on with that. So every day is new. Where we're going to be next year, I can't tell you, because part of it is we can map out a game plan of where we want to go and where we want to be, where YouTube takes things, where things go in the digital space. It's like it changes so rapidly. We're just nimble enough to change with it. So I'm hoping the studio expansion is stopped for the next little while. We're getting more into YouTube Live, where there's a whole bunch of stuff happening there. On the Tin Man side, I think we're probably starting to get into development on like what are we going to do with Super Science Friends, with the Frederator relationship that we've built, with the Verve licensing agreement that we just had. It's like now we're now getting calls from people who are like, they think they've discovered it. We have to tell them like, you haven't, you're slightly late to the game, but it's lovely that you're there to see it. With Annecy, it's been phenomenal, and I know that we're in further talks with other parties. I think while Skyship is growing and it's evolving, and we're figuring out the digital space and how to be a digital-first creator and broadcaster, which is its own kind of thing, I think we need to kind of reevaluate what Tin Man is now. Are we a production service? Like, do we do commercial stuff? Do we double down on Super Science Friends? Right now, I have this very fortunate little luxury that we're not dependent on having to be bringing stuff in, because the Skyship side of things is keeping the studio going well. So it's we're allowed to play, and it might just be that we start to dabble with, we're doing more festival shorts, where we're doing more independent projects, where we're able to take the burden of having to do the money stuff, so we can go back to where we were where we first launched, and we can start to take those more creative projects back in. So it's a lot of unknowns. I haven't been in a comfort zone for like a couple of years now.
And that's what takes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's all that. You can't forecast it. We're just going to keep going forward and grow into that digital space more. I think the goal is to be like the leading kids YouTube channel or channels. We're definitely up there out of Canada.
Yeah.
I want the world. It's a big world. But yeah, Yeah. So really, it's like, who knows?
Yeah.
Ask me this time next year.
That's the same. So I'm gonna amend the question one more bit, and this is you can take this one as a you yourself personally in the context of what you're doing, or you guys as a company, but and some of you may not want to answer this at all, but end game.
The end game.
End game. Where do you want to be? Not just what's next. Not some. Is there because we come back to it. You know, what got me out of Ottawa and here was I started listening to the advice I was giving students. And in terms of like, what do I fucking want?
Yeah.
In like, because it wasn't going to happen in Ottawa to get to the next place, to get to the thing, to get to the thing, to get to the thing. And I've got a pretty clear idea of what I deep down inside really want. I don't know if I'm how I'm going to get there. You guys are all in these various positions where you already have what a lot of people would consider the end game. It's not. None of us are getting any younger, but we have a lot of good years ahead of us. So what's the end game?
Well, I mean, the end game as of now, because it's going to change, as we talked about,
Yeah.
it's going to change depending once you reach it. You never know. You might reach it tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I got to change that. As of now, we want to be our own brand of content. We want to be more like authors or musicians when it comes to animation. Then meaning like every project is gonna be like making an album. Every project is gonna be like writing a book, you know, and have the flexibility of like, you know, we want to do a book now, we do a book now. We want to do a film now, we can do, you know, we do a film now. We want to do like, maybe that's why I asked, like a mini series now. We do that, right? But it's just only our content. We don't do anything else for anybody else, but just dedicate those. Because yes, I mean, you know, I'm in my mid-40s, right? So time's running out.
Yeah, there's a clock.
And no, there's it's just capacity too. Yeah. Like this. And do I want to be working all the time? And I love the clients that we work now, and I'm sure they're. But the end game is to just dedicate it to our original thing, whatever that is, and look at it from a point of authorship more than service. That's right now. Again, ask me a year from now, I might be too excited about making series, and that's what I'll be doing for the next 20 years. But right now, that's against, and I can speak for all three of us, on that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. Well,
Can you even say anything?
it's tricky. A couple of things right out of the gates. We'd love to get into the feature game again. We will. And at the same time, I think getting Jamie and Phil the vehicle to showcase what they're capable of doing, what we know they're capable of doing, and just to get them that spotlight that I know that they've deserved after all these years, grinding their way at this, and it's tricky. There's other things that we'd like to do, but not probably. Won't be saying them here.
Yeah.
But those are two things that we can honestly say that those are closer than we think. But I think those are the things I'd like to try to do next anyways. How's that? Yeah.
Perfectly, safe.
Yeah.
For me, easy. Write and direct a feature. Develop IP that sees the light of day.
Win an Academy Award.
That too. I forgot to mention the other IP I'm working on, Valiquette. I really hope that sees the light of day as well too.
Yeah. So it's the freedom to make your own stuff. Freedom to make your own stuff. Freedom to make your own stuff. You already have some of that.
Yeah. I couldn't even venture because really
You're so far away from where you thought you
adventure
were
has
gonna
just
be.
started. Yeah, and if you had asked me 10 years ago where I thought I would be now, it's not where I am now. To be running independent from the regular production industry and it's a dream to do what we're doing. Like it's ridiculous. And so right now the goal is to just keep growing that and build the team and the collaboration relationships and everything that we have within the studio, which has been so amazing. And the feedback we get from our viewers is just the most fulfilling and rewarding thing I could imagine. I can't even tell you what the end goal is now because the game's totally changed for me personally. maybe next year I'll have a better handle on it. Right now, it's like, man, I am just along for the ride for a lot of it. Yeah.
Well, I want to genuinely thank you guys for coming and doing this, especially you, Sam. No,
Thanks for dropping
it's
in.
same here.
my
I just,
bedtime.
I just came by.
Honestly,
dropped
what's-
by, I didn't think about it.
You were just in the
I'm supposed to be picking up milk. I've got a baby at home I gotta get back to.
Pizza's all cold.